This Day in Sports History. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. I'm a big fan of shave soap. I've been using different brands for years, and I recently gave Sterling's shave soaps a try, and I've been very happy with the results. Sterling's shave soaps give you a great lather and a frictionless feel that allows the razor to glide right over the skin for a super close shave. No skin irritation and a clean, refreshing feel with no soapy residue after. I can tell you without a doubt, it's simply the best shave I've ever had. And my wife has noticed too. And here's the thing. With the ability to purchase 1-ounce sample pucks, you can try out different scents to find the right one for you. Give Sterling Soap a try today. Visit sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com. It's This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History podcast family. You can find more info at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's November 20th, and over the last 45 years or so, this seems to be a day full of wild and crazy endings to football games. And let's start with what happened on this day in 1982, when the Stanford band stepped on the field a bit prematurely. It is known as the play, though that does kind of imply that something was drawn up and executed to perfection. This was more like chaos that just happened to end in a touchdown. Cal Stanford is a rivalry that is simply known as the Big Game. The rivalry started back in 1892, and then they started playing for the Axe in 1899. John Elway had never played in a postseason bowl game. A win against Cal in the final game of the 1982 regular season would secure that bowl bid for the Cardinal. Elway did all he could to get them there. He led the Cardinal down to the Cal 18-yard line to set up a go-ahead field goal. When Stanford kicker Mark Harmon, not that Mark Harmon, he played at UCLA before going on to star on NCIS, kicked the 35-yarder with 4 seconds left, it put Stanford in the lead 20-19. And it looked like Elway was finally going to get his chance to go to a bowl game. Stanford celebrated Harmon's field goal a little too much, though, and they were called for an excessive celebration penalty, costing them 15 yards on the subsequent kickoff. No worries, just kick it long, make the tackle, ball game over. Oh boy, but that did not happen. If only they had kicked it long. Instead, head coach Paul Wiggin called for a squib kick from the 25, and that would ultimately prove to be fatal. Harmon's squib kick only went to the Bears' 45-yard line, and that's when the fun started. Here's Cal play-by-play man Joe Starkey with the call for KGRO from that day.
Rodgers along the sideline, another one. They're still in deep trouble at midfield. They tried to do a couple of... The ball is still loose as they get it to Rodgers. They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's gone into the end zone. Will it count? The Bears have scored, but the bands are out on the field. There were flags all over the place. Wait and see what happens. We don't know who won the game. There are flags on the field. We have to see whether or not the flags are against Stanford or Cal. Everybody's milling around on the field. And the Bears have won. The Bears have won. Oh my God! The most amazing, sensational, dramatic, heartrending, exciting, thrilling finish in the history of college football.
And indeed, it was all of those things. Now, I ask you, are we not better off for having a play like this to enjoy and relive every year? I mean, if you are a Stanford fan, then you're probably not thinking that, but to a casual observer, somebody with no dog in the fight, this is one of those great moments in sports. But of course, it would not have happened under the video review scrutiny that we have today. One, the man who received the second lateral, Dwight Garner, was actually tackled and his knee was on the ground when he lateraled to Richard Rodgers. Second, the final lateral to Kevin Moen was not a legal backward lateral. It was a definite illegal forward lateral. However, by this point, the Stanford band was already on the field obstructing the movement of line judge Gordon Reese, and so he was not in position to see if the lateral was backward. And then, of course, Moen wound his way through the band into the end zone before crashing into Stanford trombone player Gary Terrell. Terrell became semi-famous for his unwitting role in the play. In fact, his trombone was of immediate interest in the aftermath, with Cal athletic officials offering him $100 for his trombone. He declined. A break-in at his college apartment a few weeks later resulted in a trombone being taken, but not the trombone that he was carrying on this day. Instead, Terrell's trombone is on display at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. Terrell wasn't overly excited to be the focus of so much attention early on, but came to appreciate and then lean into the fun. Here he is at the unveiling of the statue on Cal's campus 2 years ago, commemorating this play.
There was some meanness directed my way early on, and, a lot of laughter at me, and I realized these people are laughing, having a good time. I might as well have a laugh too. And so that I just basically learned that sportsmanship, humility, self-deprecation are a much better path than bitterness.
Stanford was understandably a bit salty about the play for a while. Between 82 and 84, when Cal held the axe, Stanford displayed a lone screw in its place in their trophy case. When the axe returned to Stanford in 1984, they changed the score on the trophy plate to read Stanford 20, Cal 19. Even now, each time the axe changes hands, the score on the plate gets adjusted. Cal's had the axe in their trophy case the past 3 years. The 131st edition of the big game is coming up this Saturday, the 23rd. How about another game that would have a different result if it was played today? Let's go back to 1983 and revisit the wild end to the Atlanta Falcons-San Francisco 49ers game played at Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium. Despite these teams being on opposite coasts, this was a divisional game in the old NFC West. This was a good game from start to finish. It was tied at 14 at the half. The Niners took a 3-point lead in the third, thanks to Ray Wersching's leg. The Falcons took the lead back in the fourth on a Gerald Riggs 40-yard scamper. Joe Montana led the go-ahead Niner drive and scored the touchdown from 11 yards out to put San Fran back on top, 24-21. The Falcons were running out of time and were only able to move the ball to the Niners' 47-yard line. With 2 seconds left, the Falcons had one more play and a prayer. Falcons quarterback Steve Bartkowski dropped back and let the ball sail into the air, silhouetted by the full moon in the sky. Here's former Falcons play-by-play man Brad Nessler with the call from that day.
Here come the Falcons with Hodge, Bailey, and Johnson all to the left side. 2 seconds remain. 49ers will come with a 3-man rush. Bartkowski to throw. He is going long down the near sideline. It's going to be a jump ball, and it is pulled down by Billy Johnson. Johnson inside the 10, 5. He is down. He is. Give it to him. He's in. Touchdown. Touchdown, Atlanta. Billy Johnson. It's a touchdown. No time on the clock. The Falcons have won it. They pulled it from nowhere. The Falcons have won it.
So you heard the hesitation as Nessler waited for the signal. Well, the back judge closest to it made no signal, but looked around for help. The linesman walked up and finally raised his hands in the air, signaling touchdown. Obviously, no video review available. The Falcons won the game 28-24 on the Hail Mary. But here's the thing. It's one of those great NFL plays that would not happen in today's NFL. Johnson was actually down shy of the goal line. His butt and elbow both hit the ground prior to the ball breaking the plane of the end zone. But on this day, it counted, and Billy White Shoes Johnson got to do his end zone celebration dance. Are you a hockey fan? Then you'll love Eric Zweig's new book, Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2. It's a treasure trove of untold tales, bizarre incidents, and captivating trivia that will leave even the most devoted puckhead astounded. The intense rivalries, epic showdowns, and historic clashes that shaped the NHL's early years, it's all in there. Zweig uncovers the true stories that helped shape the sport, ensuring that you will never look at hockey the same way again. Check out Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2 on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. On this day in 1993, a walk-on kicker ended the national championship dreams of Notre Dame. Boston College came into this one still stinging from the beating the Irish had put on BC the year before. A 54-7 rout in Boston in '92 was embarrassing, but most of the Eagles players felt like the Irish rubbed their noses in it and laughed at them while they did. The Eagles jumped out to a lead in this edition and led 38-17 at the start of the fourth quarter. Notre Dame had national championship aspirations. They'd beaten Florida State the week prior and then voted number one in both polls. A win by the Irish meant a trip to the Fiesta Bowl and a shot at the title. The Irish stormed back, scoring 3 touchdowns and adding a 2-point conversion along the way to take a 39-38 lead with a minute to play. BC quarterback Glenn Foley led the Eagles and did what he could with the time he had and set up a 41-yard field goal try with 5 seconds left. Field goal kicker David Gordon was a walk-on for the Eagles. He'd missed a game winner earlier in the year at Northwestern from 40 yards out. Add to that, he'd never kicked a field goal at any point during this season from 41 yards or longer. Staring into the face of touchdown Jesus, Gordon lined up his left-footed kick. Foley, the man who desperately wanted to avenge the humiliation from the year before, was the holder. Foley actually made this kick happen when he snagged the high snap and put it down on the ground for Gordon to swing his leg. It was not the prettiest of kicks. Gordon called it a knuckleball, and it initially looked like it was going to swing wide right. But the kick straightened up and had enough distance. And Boston College, the 18-point underdog coming in, stunned Notre Dame in the Holy War. The Irish were relegated to the Cotton Bowl and finished the year ranked second behind Florida State. Shifting gears just a bit to basketball for what happened on this day in 1949, when Tony Lavelli made his debut with the Boston Celtics. Wait, who? Yeah, I hear you. Tony Lavelli? Who's that? Well, he's not one of the Celtic greats. He does not have his jersey hanging in the rafters at the Garden. He only played 1 year with them. He only spent 2 years in the fledgling NBA, and he played a total of 86 games and averaged 7 points and 2 rebounds during that short span. So why am I talking about Tony Lavelli? Stay with me and I'll tell you. Lavelli was the Celtics' first-round pick in 1949 out of Yale, where he'd been an All-American. When it came time for his contract negotiation, he wanted a little extra money, but not for his basketball skills. Instead, he wanted to be the halftime entertainment along with their starting forward. Lavelli played the accordion, and he had it written in his contract that he was offered a minimum of 25 halftime appearances to play his squeeze box for an additional $125 a performance. His first night in a Boston Celtics uniform when he made an appearance in a game was on this night. Now, he did not perform at halftime, though. The Celtics were on the road at Fort Wayne and were on their way to a 10-point loss to the Pistons. But when they made it back home on the 24th, Lavelli led the Celtics in scoring with 20 points and then performed Lady of Spain, Granada, and a few pieces from the William Tell Opera at halftime on his accordion. If that wasn't weird enough for you, it's time now for today's weird end to the podcast that has zilch to do with sports. If you are ever fortunate enough to depart or arrive at Savannah Hilton Head International Airport, know that there is a husband and wife buried near runways 10 and 28. There are 2 concrete slabs marking the burial spots of the pair. Richard and Catherine Dotson died in the late 19th century and were buried on the family farm. When that farm was later sold and the airport development project started, other graves were relocated, but the family wished for those 2 to stay. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with more This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.